Hello, welcome to your large intestine cleanse. This will be the first, if you're doing this online, this will be the first video you watch just before you start your cleanse, which could be the day before. We have one set up about a week before, and this one would be great to launch into. I myself am leading the group right now, and we're getting ready to launch today. So for those in the group who aren't attending in person, this will be your chance to go through the slides for today's presentation. This is Craig Lane with Health Alchemy. And there's a diagram of the colon in slide number 1 there, and it's going to be in each of the weeks, just as a reminder of how much space the colon takes up. And my first thoughts on this, just as introductory remarks, are notice once again, people talk about back pain and leg pain and bad body odor coming out of the sides. And if you notice, on the sides there, you've got two of the sides of the colon. And remember, there's more rotting matter in the colon than anywhere in the body. Then you've got the part of the colon that goes down into near around the anus and the central part of the body, and then that's going to affect the spine if it swells. Then you've got the transverse colon that goes right across the middle of the body, right around the diaphragm, and that's going to affect potentially the liver, the stomach, the spleen, the pancreas, how we breathe, which is paired organ is the large intestine. So I just wanted you to make note really quickly about this. Is why this anatomical drawing is here, Alex Gray's, is that it can also affect the circulation. And on the legs, you can notice the left and the right there. The left and the right legs, the circulation comes up right into the pelvis right in here. And if the colon is backed up on the left or the right side, then you'll note that there's going to be lack of circulation coming in from the legs, and hence we'll get varicose veins and hemorrhoids. Those are my introductory thoughts. Slide 2. So we talk a lot about we think we know things, and science does to a limit. And in the figures there, you notice how the gut and the brain really do look a lot alike, and that in Ayurveda, they've been saying this for thousands of years, that the seat of Vata, or the nerves, are in the colon. And we've known this for a long time, but we don't talk about it, nor is it talked about, because I believe that there are those who are trying to keep us small. And so we overtreat ourselves. We try and navigate things that it's like trying to navigate a ship in a fog bank. We don't know where we're going. And it's just good to sort of come back to the takeaway on this slide is just coming back to, you don't know, and you have an open mind to knowing more and to learning more. I know that today, each day of my life as a health professional, it's sort of a challenge to come back to that place that I don't know. Slide 3. The takeaway here is that, what's holding me back are potentially microbes holding me back, because I am populated with things that, everything has its own agenda, and so am I populated with things that potentially aren't good for me. Can I visualize myself moving through a doorway to the unknown, into a whole new world? And think about some of the questions on this slide. I'd love to hear your answers and your reflections and your explorations. Remember, this is your exploration, just like I have my own. And my entry point was on a 5-day Soulcraft retreat through the Animas Valley Institute recently. And day 2 of the retreat, I asked to be cooked. In the sacred ceremony, in the first day, I welcomed the Earth Mother, the goddess, and said, I'm ready to be cooked. I'm ready for transformation. And day 2, I had the worst headache of my life, probably by far. It was a 10 out of 10. And I was in my tent for 5 to 6 hours, unable to do any of the processes. And so my entry point, I asked for to let go of some things out of my past, and I asked to move forward into my future. And what I ended up was finding the things that were holding me back were that I actually left the retreat. And I knew then, and I know now more than ever, that I was cooking too many ingredients in the pot and caused the furnace to burn a bit too bright, headache. Took on too many things, and now I realized I don't need that sort of thing anymore in my life. I don't need to learn another teaching or sit in another container. It's for me more about distilling my own process and simplifying my life and getting rid of the sugar that I should have another process or have another teacher or another teaching in my toolbox, that I have enough. And that's what really, for me, it's like I've got enough, and I have enough tools, and those are my resources. That's part of the processes that I took away from the retreat, was that I have my tools and my resources, and I just need to follow them. So listen to your inner voices on this. Slide 4. Looking at this is a really important slide. It's going to be one of the key ones. We talk about the stages of digestion, how and what we choose our foods. I talked to so many people. One of my clients, she just quote unquote, I just found myself with a bottle of wine and some crackers or chips, and she knew weren't good for her. And so, how do we find ourselves in these places? We're always choosing, and if we're choosing unconsciously, then we've gone to sleep. And why do we go to sleep? And why do we choose something that we knew wasn't good for us? And I would go under the pretense that they're choosing us. I had a friend tell me once that, these things are choosing us all the time. And so we need to be more conscious about what we're choosing, what's good for our own digestion. How we prepare our foods is the next stage of digestion, so we can cook them or pre-cook them through rubbing salt and vinegar or acid on them and letting them sit under pressure. We can ferment them in that sort of cooking. We can chew them really well. That's the stage 3, and this is the most important one, is chewing. You can make up for a lot of negative with chewing your food really well. Swallowing to the stomach's the next step of digestion. And never forget this, is something that I learned, is that I find that the stomach extracts the finest or sun essence of food. And then it acidifies it and prepares it for the next stage. And this is a stage where a lot of people have fermentation going on, and we don't want food fermenting. The fermentative acids are what causes heartburn, and when our acid levels doesn't reach low enough, then the stomach sphincter stops working and things don't move down as well. The small intestine is really about discernment for our immune system and as a mirror of our mind. How do we separate what works, what doesn't in our body, what's self and non-self? And if we are mostly microbes, then we have these, cells patrolling that make sure that we don't have dead cells of ourselves, dead DNA, debris of our own dead tissue floating around, and that's a major portion of what our immune system does. And then there's the colon, which is the sewage treatment plant, which a lot of transformation occurs there. And we want a good microbial balance in the large intestine. Really important slide here to just ponder and look more deeply into. Slide 5 shows us a little bit of length about relativity, how large the small intestine or small bowel is compared to how large it's compared to the colon and the stomach and the esophagus. I mean, just relatively speaking, it's a very large organ, the small intestine. So people get a colonoscopy and things come out great. They're not even anywhere near being able to check out the small intestine, which is anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 times longer, plus the surface area is so much bigger. So if you spread out the whole intestine, small and large intestine, it would cover a tennis court. So think about your colonoscopies and how little the little tiny probe can actually cover, nor check out the microbes living in there. Slide 6 is a little bit more of the same, some diagrams to help you see the intricacy of the gut lining and the muscles of the tube of the intestines and the capillary beds, and that little yellow thing in there, and the detail of the villi is the lymphatics that absorb the fat. And we don't often talk about 2 other digestive organs that Chinese medicine goes into. When they talk about the spleen and the liver, when they say spleen, they're talking about the spleen and the pancreas. So in this case, it's the pancreas. And notice the pancreas and the liver both have ducts, which go right into the intestines, the upper small intestine. So in the Chinese view, sometimes the upper small intestine is viewed as part of the stomach because the sphincter from the lower stomach empties into the upper small intestine, and you've got these 2 organs right below that secrete enzymes and fat digesting molecules, and bile, which helps emulsify fat. So always think about what's upstream. That's why that back on slide 4, the choices and chewing and how the stages of digestion work. What's upstream is much more important than what's downstream. So we really want to make sure we're making good choices, we're preparing our food properly. If we can't eat raw, we eat more raw. We chew our food really well, and that affects what's downstream, just like in nature. Slide 8 shows the importance of really looking at, it's in every single PowerPoint presentation for every cleanse I do, is how the hepatic portal vein, if you notice there, it takes all the digested food and takes it to the liver, which processes it and then sends it out into circulation. And you can see, I asked the question, how you can see how coffee enemas can really decongest those veins and help really with circulation in a way. So can you see how in the fat, which go in the lymphatic system, which is the next slide, can you see how the gut, the liver, and the heart are all connected? It's a really important relationship to understand that everything's interrelated in the body. That's the takeaway here. Slide 9 we go into, there's a detail of how fat's absorbed and goes into the lymphatic vessel, which ends up dumping out near around the heart. But there's all kinds of fat filtering organs like the spleen. So the spleen's a pretty important organ too in terms of digesting, because it's filtering out waste and dead cells in the lymphatic system. So we really want to make sure that we have good sources of fat in our diet, which goes into every cell membrane of our body. And we don't often talk about the quality of the fat enough, I think. And making compromises here is as bad as making compromise to put refined sugar or a drug in your body. That's how important fats are, and I really take it seriously what fats I put in my body, to the point where I won't eat a baked good if I don't know what fat's in it. I won't eat a salad dressing if I don't know what fat's in it. And that's day in, day out for me. And it's not a stress and it's not a problem because I've not made it so. And I think that the standards, we really need to look at how are our cells made. And, every cell in our body, every membrane is composed of fat, or phospholipid bilayer it's called. And so it's important we absorb good fat. I'm going to rant on and on about this as you get to know me. There's another view of the pancreas and the head of the pancreas, and then on the other side of that, up and above to the left, where's where the liver would be, and that's where you see the common hepatic duct. So you can see where the sphincter comes out, and they share an opening there. Really important area because it often gets inflamed, and then bile will slow down and stop flowing, and pancreatic juices will stop coming out. Important area to look at. Slide 11 and 12 are going over just the associations in the body, and if you really look at, there's some really important things to look at here in terms of a lot of acupuncturists will treat the lung to help the large intestine, or they'll treat the large intestine to treat the lung. They'll treat the yang organ to tonify the yin, the yin to tonify the yang, and there's all these relationships. And you can see there that the grief and respect, that's our large intestine, some of the emotions, and how see the arrows pointing in a circle, how one feeds the next, and how there's that 5-pointed star in the middle. That's what controls another organ system. So notice that sadness and joy, or the fire element, controls metal. Fire melts metal, they say. And then notice how metal, or grief and respect, controls anger, compassion, and action. So there's all these relationships. And then the next slide kind of goes into that just a bit more, slide 12. You can see they have all these interrelationships in the body. So we really want to look at root cause in our lives. And I'm only mentioning this and putting these slides up so that you get a sense of the interconnections. There's nothing to take away here other than, if you're not interested in studying this, then don't bother with it, but just look at the interconnections there. And really there's one element feeds the next, like wood feeds fire, or it can actually overreact and over control the next. And there's a mother-child relationship, and then there's these other ones that insult other relationships, like metal insults wood. And there's some great symbology here is the takeaway. On slide 13, we're going to go through in part 2. So look for part 2 YouTube coming right up after this. Just go click right over there.